what becomes challenging is actually actioning it out and being consistent with that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us have that initial burst of motivation or inspiration,
Definitely.
but it dwindles and then we just stop. But if you can practice consistency, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. And then the idea came to me that if I aspired to become a trauma surgeon, working in London anyway as a trauma surgeon, that would give me a platform to go into environments where young men are involved in knife and gun crime in the hope of inspiring them to be and to do better. So that was how it all started.
Wow. Welcome to the Proud Talk. I'm your host, Tracy Hill, and today I'm joined by the wonderful and very, very busy Dr Leanne Armitage. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. I'm really pleased to be here.
Oh, do you know, I just said I have to write down everything that she does because there's so much. So you're a junior doctor.
I am.
Speaker.
I am.
Author.
I am.
And also founder of the Armitage Foundation.
Yes.
And a multiple award winner. I don't know how many awards. I was literally looking on your site thinking how many, and obviously you won an award from the Queen as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
And which one was that?
That was the UK 2018 Queen's Young Leaders Award.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I don't know, when I first read your bio, I was just like, this is insane. And I think also because you're quite young, you know? I would expect it from someone of my age in a way of you're 42, you've had but you're so young.
Yeah.
Super ambitious.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. And that's why you're here. I had to get everyone to hear a lot of your story and why you do what you do. So can you tell us a bit about sort of where you grew up and what life was like for you? And I think at 15, there was a shift in terms of you sort of had some direction of where you wanted to go.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So I grew up in South East London.
Good.
Right
South
between,
East London.
right between Camberwell and Peckham. And as a child, I'd say I always had a level of ambition in that I always wanted to live a good life. I always had the mindset that no matter what I do, I want to be very successful in that thing. So if I'm going to be a fitness instructor, I'll be the best. Or if I'm going to choose to pursue science, I'll be the best in that. But again, I didn't really have a specific direction. I did start to enjoy science from year 9 onwards. And I used to like emergency type stuff. So if I'd hear fire brigades or ambulances, I always used to get quite excited.
That's mad. Most people are like, oh no, what's happened? But you're like, this is good.
I just like the idea of an emergency and like having to intervene at that moment. So I kind of thought maybe forensic science, maybe engineering, possibly medicine. But yes, when I was 15, that is when I always describe it as my vision for life was born.
Okay.
And I can share the story with you. I was coming home one day with my sister, and I remember hearing the propellers of a helicopter as it was making its descent towards a really big grass field in the middle of a big estate close to where I was living at the time. And I really love helicopters. They still excite me till today. There's just something about a helicopter.
Yeah.
So I got so excited and I said to my sister, oh my God, let's go and watch it land. And she agreed. So we went over to the scene, and when I arrived, I immediately knew something wasn't right because everybody was just standing there staring and their facial expressions did not match the excitement that I was feeling inside. So I'm quite inquisitive by nature. I just turned to the first person and said, you know, why is everybody gathered here? What's happened? And then she told me a young man had been stabbed. And even though growing up in Peckham, it wasn't uncommon to hear of these incidences. And they always used to upset me, but this incident upset me on a whole nother level because it was going from that place of being so excited to then realizing, oh my God, there's no reason to be excited. A young man has potentially lost his life here. And then I remember feeling angry as I looked around thinking, everybody's just standing here watching, but who's actually going to do something to make a difference? And then I remember feeling a sense of disempowerment as I thought, well, what can I do? I'm just a 15-year-old girl. So that evening I went home with a heavy heart, and I went straight to my bedroom where I just meditated and prayed and asked God, what can I do to make a difference? And then the idea came to me that if I aspired to become a trauma surgeon, working in London anyway as a trauma surgeon, that would give me a platform to go into environments where young men are involved in knife and gun crime in the hope of inspiring them to be and to do better. So that was how it all started.
Wow. Okay, just that alone blows my mind, because, you know, I don't come across many people, even at like 15-year-olds, that have the mindset that you had at such a young age.
Yeah.
Did you get that from your family? Are they like very positive people?
It's interesting you say that, Tracy, and people often tell me that I've got a soul that's much wiser and older than I actually am. I think I've always been a very reflective person and thoughtful person. I think I've always kind of had a bit of a social activist character by nature, in that I've always been very solution focused. Like, I don't want to just discuss a problem. What are we going to actually do to resolve this? I think it's kind of just inherent to who I am. My older sister has always been a positive role model in my life, and she's a bit of an activist herself in terms of some of the things she would say, but I don't really think anybody made me that way. I think it's just how I am.
I love that though. And you said that you prayed. Have you always, I suppose, believed or had a faith? Or was it, there was a certain point in your life where you thought...
a certain point. So I'd say there were influences in the background. I mean, my mum would be described as agnostic, and I didn't grow up with my father, and he's a Muslim. So I didn't have any specific kind of faith in my family that grounded me. My sister kind of explored different religions as I was growing up, and I witnessed that. I'd say I always had a naive belief that there is a God. I did go to a Christian secondary school where they'd play gospel music sometimes in assembly, and it'd make my eyes water, and I didn't understand why. I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? But no, when I was 15, I just randomly had the desire to go to church one day. But it was the first time I wanted to go, and I think that makes a big difference. When you want to do it for yourself and you're at that place, your heart is so much more open to receive. And I went that day and never stopped going. And everybody in my family thought I was going through a phase, thought I was a bit crazy. But it just filled a hole in my heart.
Yeah, and it feels like you were just following the path that you were meant to be on.
Yeah.
Which, is
absolutely.
amazing.
Because that gave me such a grounding. And for something like medicine, especially coming from the background I came from, it was harder, and you've got to be so focused. So being able to have faith and to trust God and to kind of walk in alignment, that was so important at that age.
So 15, you decide you want to be a trauma surgeon. So what was the next step you took in that process?
I did a Google search. I was like, look, I don't know what I need to do to become a trauma surgeon, but we've got Google, so let's search.
Yes.
I realised the first thing I needed to do was get into medical school. And to get into medical school, I first needed to do well in my GCSEs. And around about that time, there were 2 German girls in my secondary school who were very celebrated in the school by the head teacher because they achieved all A stars, and we all thought that they must be superhuman or just really weird, or there's just something special about them, we're not like them. But I thought I won't aim for all A stars, but I'll set myself the goal of 10, because it's a high goal, but even if I miss that, if I'm working towards that, I'll still do quite well. And I prayed about that as well. I always describe that as like the first miracle God did in my life, because I prayed and I said, God, give me a sign that you're with me on this journey and allow me to get these 10 A stars. And I was so focused that I worked relentlessly for that. And that is when I also started to develop the habit of delayed gratification. Because I quite like the sun. I think you do as well, Jay-Z. And it was a really sunny day, and we had BlackBerry Messenger at that time, and all my friends were like, yeah, we're going to the park. And I was looking out my window, and sun in the UK, we don't always have it consistently, so it's special. I was looking out the window thinking, oh my God, I really want to go to the park, and looking down at my history books, like, especially because I used to find it difficult to read through history books. But I just had the mindset that, look, you only have one chance at these GCSEs, and this is for your future. After GCSEs, you can go on a holiday to a hot country and have consistent sun, and you have to focus on your priorities for now. So I was very diligent once I had that vision. And it's because the emotive force was so strong, the force behind the vision. I think when you've got a strong enough driving force, that gives you the strength to be very disciplined, very streamlined, and very focused.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You're extremely focused. So you knew you had to go to med school. You knew you had to, well, you'd set the bar at 10 A stars.
Yeah.
So you achieved those 10 A stars?
Yeah, which was just like, oh my God. I remember screaming. My mum was like, what's happening? Yeah, that felt amazing. Yeah.
And then after that, where did you go? Didn't you get a scholarship to?
Yeah, so round about the time when I was applying for sixth forms, my sister suggested I apply for a scholarship or a bursary from a private school. She had known a lady in her own secondary school who had the opportunity, but that lady didn't have a good experience. But my sister still thought I should give it a shot because it depends on which kind of school you go to. So I only made one application to one school, Mill Hill in northwest London. They have a bursary called the A Better Chance Bursary, which is specifically for a student who wants to study medicine.
Okay.
And I was the first ever recipient of that bursary, so I applied and I was awarded it. Yeah. Which was like...
It's amazing.
It felt so surreal.
Amazing.
To be honest...
I'm just like high-five you at every moment, even though it's happened. I'm so proud.
I'd say a lot of my life often feels surreal, and that moment definitely felt surreal because I had no concept or understanding of what boarding school would be like, apart from what you see on TV, right? And I didn't think that I would get the offer. So yeah, when I found out I was going to boarding school, I was just like, whoa, what is this going to be like?
And what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a culture shift. And it was interesting because at my secondary school, when I told some of the teachers I was going to boarding school, they had mixed views. So some were like, oh, you know, that's going to be an amazing opportunity, take full advantage. Others were like, you're going to the other side of life. And I was like, what is the other side of life?
Yeah.
Others were upset because I was also head girl of my school. So I think some had the expectation that I should go to the school sixth form. But, you know, I was focused on whatever's going to help me get closer to my goal. So I went. And when I did go, overall, I had a great experience. It was challenging because it was very different. And I think what I found most challenging about the experience is how character defining it was. Because there were some people at the school, some students, and even occasionally some teachers who I felt a little bit judged by, or like sometimes they may be projecting stereotypes. I had to really ask myself, what makes me Leanne? Is it my background? You know, is it my ethnicity? Is it what I look like? Is it how much money I do or don't have? Or is it my core character, the substance of who I am? So that was a challenge, but actually one of the best experiences ever, because when you're able to answer those deep questions and come up with your own answers, it makes you such a solid and wholesome person, and it gives you so much strength to really have strong convictions for who you are, what you believe in, what you want, and to drive after that. And I also did meet amazing people there as well, so it was a good experience.
That's good, really cool. And so med school, you went to boarding school, and then straight after, did you get accepted?
No, I was rejected.
What?
Yeah.
Who rejected her?
Who?
What?
How dare they?
Yeah, exactly. You were rejected.
Yeah, I think the issue is I didn't get the opportunity to be interviewed. Medicine is very competitive, so once you've done your exams and got the grades, you also have to do admissions tests and score relatively well in those to be invited for interview. And on my first application, I didn't score very highly in the admissions test. The boundaries are really tight, so that's why I hesitate to say I scored okay, but obviously not good enough. So I didn't get invited to interview. I think if I had been invited to interview, I would have been able to show my passion, but I never had that opportunity. So I took a gap year. But it was a blessing in disguise, because during that gap year I got a scholarship which funded my whole university education. And I also got an offer to study at London, whereas before all of the schools were outside of London. So in retrospect, I'm so grateful for the initial rejection, which I think is a principle of life as well. I think rejection is very tough for anybody. It feels very personal, especially when you've put your heart and soul into something. But sometimes you can't see things that are, you know, in the background. So I often like to say rejection is redirection to what is right for you.
Completely agree with that. And it took me a very long time to accept that, or
it's
even
hard.
realise it actually. Now I do, and and then when you see things happening, you're like, wow, like this is just insane, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually happening in my life.
Absolutely.
So you're at med school. Oh, you're not at med school. No. You're working now as a trauma
No, just as so when you graduate, so I spent 6 years at medical school.
Yeah.
Then when you graduate from medical school, you spend 2 years as what's called a foundation doctor,
Okay.
where you rotate between six different specialties. You spend 4 months in each, and that's
Wow.
2 years. So I'm in my final rotation on the stroke ward.
Okay.
And at the moment, I'm not 100% sure what I want to specialise in, because now's the time to start thinking about that. My current train of thought is anaesthetics and not trauma surgery.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Again, another shift, but you seem to have just followed the correct path, so it's the one.
Exactly.
Amazing. So when did the Armitage Foundation come about in this story?
Yeah. So it was after my second year of medical school. I took a year out of medical school to do what's called an intercalated BSc degree.
Okay.
So it's basically, as a medical student, you have the opportunity to take a year out to study a master's or a degree, and they condense the 3-year degree into a year, so it's very intense. So even though it was a very busy year, I had extra time in that medical school is basically like a job, Monday to Friday, almost 9 till 5 each day. Whereas with this Bachelor of Science, I only physically had to be present 2 days a week.
Okay.
Which gave me a lot more autonomy on how I use the rest of my time. And I remember coming across an article by the British Medical Association around about this time, which highlighted that across the UK, half of the schools do not produce a single medical applicant. And across, shocking stuff.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, medicine it's to be honest, those statistics haven't really massively shifted. It's still very much a profession that's mainly occupied by people who are coming from more privileged backgrounds or backgrounds where they've got doctors in their families. So yeah, when I came across that, I was as shocked as you are. And I thought, oh my God, there's such a huge talent gap here, because there could be the future world oncologist who's going to be amazing living somewhere like, I don't know, in Peckham or another kind of deprived area where they're struggling, but actually they really have the talent. And so because I come from a similar kind of background, I really felt like I had insight into some of the issues that needed to be addressed to help support talent from diverse backgrounds. So initially I just set up a medical outreach program, and then it
initially
evolved.
I just set out a medical outreach program. It's more than that. Come on. You just.
Yeah. I caught up with a mentor and I told her my idea, and she said, okay, you need to pilot this. So I went to my old secondary school sixth form and asked for the opportunity to work with some of their students, and they agreed. So we had 8 special students who were in sixth form, and we had a great time, but I realised that, by the time they get to sixth form, they haven't got the grades, their characters are not really developed to make them strong competitive applicants. And it's just, none of the students in that class went on to study medicine, and I don't think any of them would have been accepted first time round, because I don't think any of them would have had the grades. So that showed me that, oh my gosh, this intervention has to be a lot earlier.
Yeah.
So then we decided to work with year 8 students, and as we were kind of evolving into that, I met my co-founder, who really just helped me take things to another level, and then we officially registered the charity.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how's that going so far? Is good?
It's going really well. We've formed a few partnerships, which is brilliant. We have an amazing staff member called Adila, who's like just awesome. My co-founder and I, because we have such a strong team and also a great board of trustees, it helps us to manage things, even though I'm super busy.
I was going to say.
Super busy. Yeah.
You're extremely busy, and you've also written a book in this time. Do you ever stop?
I think I'm really good at recognizing different seasons.
I like
and
that.
So because I remember I said I rotate specialties every 4 months. So in the rotation prior to this, I was working in community psychiatry, which is the absolute opposite in terms of pace to stroke medicine, which is where I am now. And so I had so much more time on my hands, and so it just made sense that now is the right season to write this book. And so I just stayed focused and just kind of aimed to do about 500 words each day. I didn't do 500 words every single day, but having that mentality helped me, because some days I did more, other days I did less, but I managed to finish the book.
Yeah. And did you take that approach? Because I speak to quite a few authors, and they have sort of said, I always used to think you have to have every single chapter set out and you need to just go for it and write the whole thing. But they're like, no, like I was talking to an author the other day and she said, no, actually the end of my book was the beginning, and it was all over the place, but I had some direction. But like you said, 500 days, and then in the end it's...
I had a framework that I created. Initially, when I first ever started writing, I didn't know what I was doing. Well, I kind of did, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I was just kind of writing a biography, and I just thought, I haven't lived long enough to finish this book.
I don't know. You've done more in your years than most have, to be honest.
Then I got a book coach, and he helped me kind of start to come up with the structure.
Yeah.
And so once I had the structure, then I was able to start working on it. I think I did try to go in a bit of a chronological order, but then I jumped back and forth. That's how my brain kind of works as well, yeah. But I did jump back and forth and add things, delete things, etc. But yeah, for the most part, it was kind of a bit ordered for me.
Yeah, I'm like that. Like I had to sit here. So The Power of a Dream. The Power of the Dream is the book. And when did that come out? 6 months ago or something?
March. Yeah, I had my book launch on my birthday, my 27th
birthday. 27th birthday and your book launch. Like, amazing.
It was honestly the best birthday ever.
I could see all the pictures that were on LinkedIn, the video you posted. Honestly, I was like, this is just insane. She's super happy.
I was so happy.
Yeah. And you had quite an audience.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people.
That's what made it so special. Especially because when you've got an audience of people who genuinely love and support you, it's just so magical. It was wonderful, especially because I didn't realize what I was undertaking when I decided to do an in-person book launch. Like normally you have a team that help manage that, and I was doing it. I was leading everything. There were people that were helping me, but it was just informal support. It wasn't a team. So it was quite stressful, the run up to that.
Not surprised.
Yeah, so seeing it all come together on the day, it was just... Yeah, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I did. I saw a couple of videos and I absolutely loved them. Can you tell us a bit about your book?
Yeah, so my book is called The Power of a Dream, and the essence behind the book is to inspire people to pursue their dreams, to reawaken their desire to dream, and to give them practical strategies to help them achieve their dream. Many of the strategies or principles are ones that I've had to apply in my own life and that I continue to apply today to help me to get to where I'm going. And so yeah, it's really just a book to just give people that. I think as young people we all have that desire to dream, you know, and as you go through life you can become a little bit more sinister, or you know, the busyness of life can just distract you and just make you forget about those things and just stick to day-to-day living. But life is so much more exciting when you just dare to dream again and just to chase after those dreams. And even if you don't achieve exactly what you hope for, the journey and who you meet along the way and the experiences you have is so valuable. Like even, I think in 2018, I had this idea to create a documentary. I'm one of those crazy people that gets an idea and runs with it.
Yeah, of course. It's not, I mean, you have to be crazy to do all of what we all do, right? It's mental.
Exactly. So yeah, I started working on this, and because I had this vision, I was able to eventually find a videographer. And the idea behind the documentary is that it would be a fundraising documentary and would raise loads of money. And we raised some money from it, but nowhere near as much as I wanted to. Okay. So it didn't achieve that objective, but the videographer and I still remain friends today. And she's actually the one who helped me to do all of those videos for my book. And she also designed the book cover because she's an all-round creative. So that relationship was so valuable, even though the initial objective of the documentary wasn't fully achieved. So you still gain things in the process.
Oh, yeah, definitely, 100%. So your book can be found on Amazon?
So it's on Amazon, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole new thing in itself as well, isn't it, really, being able to do a book launch on Amazon. I think they make it a lot easier than they used to.
Yeah, they do.
So all this busy time, and you're 27 now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Have there been many sacrifices you've had to make?
Yes, I would say definitely yes. But as you say that, it doesn't, even though they're sacrifices, it's like it doesn't feel massively like sacrifice because it's what I've chosen to do, if that makes sense. And I know why I'm doing it. Yeah. But yes, of course, you have to sacrifice time. You have to sometimes sacrifice social events. You have to sometimes balance immediate gratification against long-term vision, so that can feel like a sacrifice. So yeah, I'd say life is full of sacrifices.
But if you want to reach that end goal as you do, then you have to stay committed, don't you?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that there's people watching this just like completely amazed by you, because I know that I am.
Thank you.
When they're watching this, and whether, you know, it be a young child that might be thinking, oh, do you know what, I'd actually really like to be a doctor, but I don't know, life wasn't dealt to me the same it was for others.
Yeah.
What's your advice there?
Yeah. I'd say, number one, we all have to understand that we have the power to create our destiny. We have the power to create our future. Oftentimes, especially when you come from a challenging background, and I feel like I qualify to say this because many people would consider my background to have had its fair share of challenges, you have to decide that I can rewrite my story or create the rest of my story. And when you empower yourself with that mindset, that creates such a huge shift in your life, because it then allows you to be empowered to start making the decisions to get to where you want to get to. And that's so important, because we are a sum product of the decisions and the choices that we make on a daily basis. Lots of people complain that I'm not getting what I want, but if we were to really look at their lifestyle and look at their daily decisions and choices and habits, that would help to explain more than half of the reason why they're not getting what they want. So I'd say to any young person or to anyone at any stage of their life to, first of all, just understand and know that you've got so much more power than you think that you have to create the future that you want. I'd encourage you to work on your mindset, because, you know, it's our thoughts influence our actions our habits, and then that leads to the direction that we're going in. So don't neglect to make sure you're pouring into your mind, you know, reading the right material, encouraging and inspiring yourself. And then I'd say have a vision. And that doesn't have to be like some light bulb moment like it was for me. It could just be something simple, like I want to be financially stable, or I want to be healthier, or I want to be in a better headspace. Have that as your vision and start thinking about, okay, what are the things I need to do to start working towards that? And then start implementing. I think that to achieve what many would regard as success is actually quite simple. Like when you reason it out in your mind, what becomes challenging is actually actioning it out and being consistent with that. Because a lot of us have that initial burst of motivation or inspiration, but it dwindles and then we just stop. But if you can practice consistency, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
Oh, definitely. 100%. Well, you are very wise.
Thank you.
Wise beyond your years, as I'm sure everyone will agree.
And I have this big baby face.
Oh, listen, there's nothing wrong with that.
I always feel like I've really felt more recently than ever experiencing ageism, honestly.
Yeah. It is a thing, though. I think we talked about this before. Because when I used to be in work, they'd be like, no, Tracy, you're too young.
Yeah, they don't take you seriously initially.
Like, yeah, exactly. No, I'm 30. I wish I was then, but like I'm 42. I might still only look 30. I'm joking.
But no, it's good to look young. And you look fabulous, Tracy.
Thanks. I'll take that. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And I could talk to you forever, to be fair. So we'll have another show soon. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed the episode, please share, like, and subscribe. Lots of love. Hey, if you have enjoyed watching the Proud Talk just as much as I've enjoyed interviewing, do me a favour, hit subscribe, like, and share. Lots of love.